Boys is getting quiet. Go on and get crunk. Head back to Longview, Kelly popping trunk. I ain't even tripping. Riding and I'm sipping. Let me come through, 4-4, steady tipping. On that new lap. Watch the trunk crack. Let me sit sideways, CB running back. Maybe AP, maybe AD. I ain't even tripping cause we some athletes. Messing with Smitty in the summertime. He get pissed if we don't make our time. But we gon' get it cause we gotta finish. Nebraska horn hustlers, man, we diminished. Put them boys little, paint like a skittle. I ain't even tripping, I ain't never double dribble. Cause I'm a player from the Himalaya. Let me sit sideways, man. Maybe back door, maybe fall off. Sipping codeine cause I gotta kill a cough. Let me sit sideways in the big Benz. Oh, you boys, they my brothers, they my friends. Holla at Coach Sumlin, holla at the Stoops. Let me sit sideways in the two-door coupe. Cause I'm sitting clean, foes on the lean. Look at my pants, got a sag in my jeans. Let me sit sideways cause I'm steady coming. PT throwing that ball and it's humming. I'ma gon' catch it, I'ma gon' wretch it. Man, I'm sitting sideways, boy, shoulder naked today.
All right, welcome to Fullback U. This one's going to be a very easy one, my big bro. He calls it OU La Familia. So, my man PJ Mills, I'm honored to have you in, man. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. It's good to see you. Got to start off by saying I'm proud of you, what you're doing in so many aspects of your life. Got to meet your son. You're doing a great job with him first and foremost. Family's always first. I know you've always put him and your family first. OU, the second family, OU La Familia, as we both say, is huge in both of our lives as well. But I'm just proud of all of the steps that you've taken and how you conduct yourself when you make those moves, man.
Man, we've been talking here for about 20 minutes. I know my producer's probably upset, but we have so many, common things, and you were one of those guys. I say big bro, man, but we talked about Mike Gaddis, guys that just affected my life from your Jeff Frazier, older 90s guys. This is why I'm so glad that we are able to do this, and now I have the Facebook group, which we'll have to talk about, that keeps us connected. But yes. Speaking of background and being connected, tell everybody what you're doing now and where you at.
Well, I moved away. I've been gone for about 18 months. I was back east. I'm originally from Virginia. I spent about 9-10 months in North Carolina. I'm back in Oklahoma, and it's good to see you, obviously, and see my mom, my brother, and my daughter's here, and a lot of good friends. So I'm having a good time reacclimating myself back to being in Oklahoma. Also, I'm filling in right now on the Sports Animal. I'm filling in from 9 to noon this upcoming week for BBJ. I'm sorry, BBJ.
Rest in peace, BBJ.
Every time that time period, that time slot,
it's always going to be him.
It comes to my mind, so rest in paradise. I apologize for that. But obviously, Hump, who's a great man, filling in for him this week while he's dealing with the Masters.
What made you get into radio, man? You've got a great radio voice. You X's and O's guy. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if you made a podcast, I would definitely listen. But what made you get into radio?
It was by accident. It was totally by accident. When I was in school, obviously sports radio was around, but I wasn't necessarily cognizant of it. I wasn't really aware of it. I was still kind of checking the newspapers and seeing what's said on television. It wasn't until the 2000s when I was working, and then like on a lunch break, I'd turn over and I'd hear radio conversations dealing with sports. I'm like, okay, I like this. So I would take my lunch breaks and get something to eat and just listen to those sports conversations. That's how I kind of got a hold of, the Sports Animal, the Ref, and different sports entities in the Oklahoma area. And it intrigued me because they were doing things that I like to do, which is have, passionate, important conversations, whether it's about sports, whether it's about music, and other topics. So I just used to call in every now and then because I'd hear something and I felt like, I want to give this angle. So I would call the Animal, I'd call the Ref, and crazy enough, both of them called me in for like an interview. It wasn't even what I was doing it for. I just love conversation. So at first when I went to the Animal, they said, they were interested, and I was like, okay, cool. I didn't even think people were looking like that. And they said, Al's out of town, so obviously it was the summertime. So when he gets back, we'll talk to you some more about it. I said, okay, cool. I appreciate you even thinking about me. Well, like 2 days later, the Ref asked me to come in. I didn't know it was for an interview. My man Myron Patton, we both know him. He was on the station. He said, hey, you want to come in and let me interview you? I said, yeah, sure, fine. I didn't know that the interview was an interview for the job, not just an interview for, being a former athlete at OU. So I did that, and then the next day, I come into work because I was working at Fowler Honda in Norman. And I came in, and I saw the general manager, Mike Holt, great guy, talking to my general manager at the time that was in at Fowler Honda, Dallas. I'm like, yo, hey man, don't get me fired,
right?
You know. And they were in there talking. I'm like, and he walked by and he just kind of winked at me. I said, do I still have a job? He looked at me and said, you might have two.
Wow.
I said, whoa, really? So I sat down and talked to my GM, Dallas. He was really cool, Dallas McClary. He was cool, and he allowed me a 2-hour gap because it was just in Norman to go do that. He didn't have to do it. So I always appreciated it. So I was working 2 jobs basically for like 8 years. And I just fell in love with sports conversation because it's what I love to do. And funny enough, I ended up working at both places. I was with the Ref for about 6.5 years, and I was with the Animal for about 18 months.
Man, you mentioned, and I want to get into this background, and this next story that you tell is going to be news to me. You mentioned that you were from Virginia. Big shout out to one of my bros, Thomas Jones. I was a rookie with him. He's from Newport News.
That's bad news, VA, baby.
He's a very, very big impact on me. So I really wanted to say a shout out to him. But definitely, just tell me how. And when I asked these Twitter questions, everybody started talking about Enid with you. So you said Virginia. Tie these loose ends between that.
Okay, what it is I'm originally from Portsmouth, Virginia. And my dad was in the Air Force, so that's what brought us to Oklahoma. My dad was in the Air Force. We went, we went to Enid, Oklahoma, and it was a culture shock. You know, I'm used to the East Coast and Norfolk and Portsmouth and Hampton, Virginia Beach, going up to D.C., family in Philly. My mom's originally from Philly, so I'm used to the East Coast. Spent a little time in Arizona. My dad was in the Air Force when we were younger, but not the middle of the country. Nothing against it. I just never been here before. So I get here and people are nice, but it's hard to leave to go into a new place during high school. So I was a junior when I got to Oklahoma, and I wanted to go home. I wanted to go back to Virginia. There's nothing against Oklahoma. It just wasn't home to me. I wanted to go home. It's high school. You got kind of things figured out by the time you're coming up on being a junior. Well, my high school coach, called me in his office, and I'm 17, so I'm thinking like, what I do, not that I was a trouble.
Got to be something wrong.
Not that I was a trouble kid, but why you calling me in the office? We could talk at another time. So there's 2 gentlemen standing there when I walk in there. I don't know who they are by face. When I heard the names, I knew who they were, and they said, these 2 gentlemen want to talk to you. I said, about what? And he said, well, about an opportunity. I said, what kind of opportunity? They said, well, let me introduce you to him first. I said, okay. He said, that's Lucius Selman. And I looked at him like, I know the name. And he said, that's Bobby Proctor. I'm like, okay. Maybe this ain't a bad thing at all.
At all.
At
all.
So they said, they just want to talk to you for a minute. Can they talk to you? I said, yeah, they can talk to me, definitely. He said, I'm going to leave and let y'all talk. I said, okay. So then they sit there and they said, well, I'm going to leave the guy's name out because he's a good friend of mine. We played together at OU. But he says, listen, we brought in a receiver. We like him. He's good. But we think you're better. If you were to come out at the same time, we would have picked you instead of him. Name doesn't matter. He's still my boy to this day. But they said, so we hear that you may be going back to Virginia. And that blew me away, JD, because 2 weeks previous, my father told us there was a possibility that we may go back to Virginia. So I was happy. But I'm thinking, like,
how did they know?
So I said, how do y'all know that? And they both just kind of smirked at me and said, we're the University of Oklahoma. We know everything. But it wasn't menacing. It was like, this is OU. It's what we do.
No doubt.
So it was kind of smooth how they said it wasn't threatening at all. So they said, listen, if you stay, we'll give you a scholarship. I said, you serious? I said, don't play. He said, no, we serious. If you stay, we'll give you a scholarship. I said, okay, can I ask a question? They said, yeah. I said, can I go talk to my parents about this? They said, we don't want you making a decision without talking to your parents. We're just telling you what our intentions are so you can tell your parents. So they didn't do anything that wasn't above board. They just told me they were interested in me. They were going to give me a scholarship. And words matter, and how you interpret words matter. I'll get there in a second. So they said, we'll give you a scholarship. If you stay, we'll give you a scholarship. So I go home and tell my dad because I saw him first. And then, he said, get your mom. And, we're talking about it. My brother Sean as well. We're just sitting there and we're talking. And he says, what do you think you should do? I said, Dad, I want to go home. And he says, okay, let's say you go home. What happens in 2 years? I said, well, Virginia Tech was kind of talking. And I went to my first football camp ever was at Virginia Tech with one of my best friends, Richard Wells. I said, so maybe Virginia Tech will offer something. He said, okay, let's analyze this, son. University of Oklahoma is a better football program than Virginia Tech, and they're offering you a scholarship. You want to go home and wait and see if Virginia Tech does the same thing. I'm not telling you what to say. I'm just phrasing. I'm just putting it out there. This is your options as of right now. And then he said, so what do you think you should do? I said, I want to go home. He said, I understand that, but we're talking about your future. So we're going, just talking, because that's my hero. My dad was my hero. And he said, I'm asking you one more time, what do you think you should do? I said, I probably should take the scholarship. He says, that's what you're going to do. I just want to see what you thought.
Yes.
He said, I just want to see what you thought. He never made the decision for me. He just asked the right questions, said the right things to get me to think. He never told me what to do. He just had follow-up questions. So it was my decision to come to Oklahoma. So I came on a recruiting trip, and Dr. Hill was here. Thomas Hill, his son played for Duke. He was a smooth cat, nice guy. And I always remember this, Jay. I went to the restroom and I came back, man, and my dad had cancer, and I came back to Doc Hill's office. When I get to the front door, I look, and Doc put his hand on my dad's hand. He said, "I'll take care of him." And man, it just meant so much. Like, it was almost like my dad was saying, y'all take care of my son. You know what I mean? And I knew right there I didn't take any other visits. I didn't, because if I didn't go to OU, I was gonna go to Ohio State. That was my plan. If I didn't go, because Ohio State came later, so some other options came later. So I was gonna take Ohio State, but it was like, no. I wanted to go to a big time football program and prove myself, but I wanted to go somewhere where they wanted me, not somebody else heard that I was good and they followed up. Nah, the big dog came first, showed true interest, and everything was just lining up, man. It was like, okay, I'm in Oklahoma, my parents are here, my brother's here, OU, big time program, and then I'm thinking back when I was a kid, like Jamel Holloway was my guy. That's why I wore 4 was because of Jamel Holloway. I think I'm like 12, 13 years old, watching television. He's got a fur coat on, a Louis Vuitton bag. I said, listen, I don't know who he is, but that cat is smooth. Got a chance to meet him my freshman year when we played Nebraska. And it was like, there's so much little OU things. When I looked back on it, it was like, okay, this feels right. And then when I saw that, it just locked it in. It just really locked it in when he said, I'll take care of him. And you can always go take other trips and go other places, but if I had to do it all over again, this is my second home.
Man, that's fantastic. And it's my home, so if I say you good here, you good here. But
it's great, man.
But I
best
feel
decision I made.
No doubt, and I'm glad that for you, and I'm so glad it worked out for you. And sorry to hear about your father. Obviously, I dealt with that same thing with my mother. And then I also have to tell you, PJ, that I feel terrible because I never got to watch any of your games growing up because OU was on probation, I believe, at that time, or y'all were. Was that probation years?
92.
Early 90s?
I was there 92, 95.
So what was the probation years?
I think We had some I think it was part of the probation.
They had the TV blackout, I believe. So that was the thing, and we never really made it down to any games. But you mentioned the tradition. It got me thinking of my dad telling me when I was younger how great the Selman Bros were when they would play against Nebraska and all that. And speaking of the tradition, we've got a bunch of them as former players. Thursday night at O'Connell's, a Friday night up in the stadium, Saturday at the game. It used to be a former player day. Are you going to the spring game festivities?
Yeah, I want to do that. I want to, I'm back now, so I want to, engulf myself in. I mean, I love my school, and it's almost like, and I hope this comes across right. I almost love it more now, because sometimes when you get away from something, you get a greater appreciation from it. I think when I was there, I loved it there. It was like, what can I get out of it? And now it's like, I'm glad to be a part of it, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to be part of something bigger than myself.
Absolutely. What do you, we've got and you and I talk about it all the time, but we talk about the current team. What are you looking for out of the team during the spring game? Obviously, Jalen Hurts is there. You and I talk about the defense all the time. Is there anything that they can show you? What are you looking for football-wise? Just talk about that.
Well, I think we both love OU. Whenever I say something, it's because I care. It's not to denigrate anybody. I just really care about the program, and I want to get it back to where it should be. Now, when I say get it back to where it should be, you've been to 2 Final Fours in the last 4 years. Obviously, the program's not doing bad, but there are things that need to get better. The number one thing is defense. Oklahoma has to get back to imposing ourselves on the other team defensively. Everything in football, to me, starts at the line of scrimmage. D-line and O-line. We had one of the best O-lines in OU history, but obviously now these guys are going to go on to the NFL. So you got to replenish the O-line. You have to develop the D-line so that you have complete units. We haven't had a complete unit on defense in years. We've had a guy here or a guy there, but we haven't had a D-line that's going to shut it down. We haven't had that linebackers that's going to tackle in space. Well, we haven't had that complete secondary that can see man and ball, gang tackling. Just the fundamentals of what football and what OU football is. Because when people think OU, they think defense. When you talk about the history of OU, they mostly thought defense first. Now, obviously, in the 2000s, the offense has been amazing. It's been amazing with throwing the ball. But I just want us to get back to a situation where I'm going to just say it like I see it. Sometimes it seems like it gets to the point if we don't out-talent anybody, we're not going to win. If we got more talent than you, we'll win. But if it's a tough guy contest, we're not winning them enough. That's just as honest as I can say it. And some people will say, oh, well, what happened when you played? That's perfectly fine. Whenever you put something on film, people can judge it. So discredit me from saying it. But is what I'm saying wrong? So people may not want to hear from somebody that didn't win much. I'm just telling the truth because it's still an us thing for me, and I left in 95. It's still an us thing. It still matters to me what we do, particularly on the big stage. I'm proud of this program, but there's other levels we can get to, and I want us there.
I think you bring up a great point, and I think, PJ, what you said, tackling in space, it's what Alabama and Clemson do the best. And, I mean, to me, that's what puts them over anybody. I mentioned that I didn't really become a fan. I do want to tell you that my first memory of OU was OU Texas when James Allen got stopped a yard short. So that made me really hate Texas growing up. But I want to know what Norman – you talked about it a little bit earlier. You drove in town. Thank you for coming. Tell me about what Norman was like. What were the restaurants like around here? What you like? What you dislike?
My freshman year, they didn't have BET in Norman.
Wow.
They didn't have BET my freshman year in Norman.
I never came down. We came down. We would play basketball at the old Tinker or the Norman Y over there off Flood. So that was the only place we really came when
we used to play in the Huffman.
Yep.
Listen, it was so funny. We had the intramural basketball teams, and we had our jerseys made. Had bad boys on it, flip it inside and out. And we had our nicknames on the back of our jerseys. You want to know what my nickname was?
What's that?
This is embarrassing, but I'll say it. It was Dark Gable.
Right.
I got that from Big Daddy Kane.
Okay.
And so we had cheerleaders. We had talked some of the students in there having cheerleaders.
Hilarious.
We had music being played. We had Robert Allen, who was one of the D linemen. He was our coach, so we had him wear a suit. We made it a production. We tried to do everything big, but just memories like that is one of the fun things about going. Oh yes, the games, and that's the most important thing from a football perspective, and learning and getting your degree. But moments. Life is many times about moments and creating memories, and I got great memories of OU, man.
Same here. What's your favorite? We'll go favorite game, least favorite game from your era, favorite game, least favorite game from my era. I want your opinion on it.
My favorite game was when we beat Texas, because that's what it's about. In my mind, Texas and Nebraska are our rivals. Now I know it has progressed to some people look at OSU that way. I've never looked at OSU as a rival. I've looked at Texas and Nebraska is our rival. Obviously, we don't play Nebraska anymore, so Texas is our rival. That's usually what you're judged on. As far as when they look back on you, they said, did you win a national championship? Did you win a conference championship? How'd you beat Texas? That's usually the three conversations that they have when people ask about your time at OU. So when we beat Texas my sophomore year, to see Coach Gibbs that happy, to see Coach Selman, them embrace each other, and what made me so happy is, like, do people not remember how much winning they did before that? Like Coach Selman and Barry and Coach Gibbs, they got national championships, coached national championships. And at the end of this run, they're just diluted down to, you didn't beat Texas in these 4 years. They were here longer than that. You know what I mean? And listen, Gibbs followed the man. You're never going to win following the man. Barry Switzer is the king on so many levels. He's the king of bringing in black athletes that Texas wouldn't bring in. Let's talk about it.
Yep.
Putting black athletes in decision-making positions, which is quarterback. Let's talk about it. He may not mention it. Helping get Miss Black OU there. He was instrumental in that. Special Olympics. He has a huge heart. If people only know him for a great coach or funny comments, then you're missing it. Because he's a great individual.
Straight up.
He's a great individual.
He's amazing. You mentioned, and obviously I don't judge him off any of the trouble, but I judge more so the NCAA off a lot of things. And what's your thoughts on the current state of the NCAA, particularly on paying players? We've just had, in just my opinion, Zion Williamson brought out just the huge. It's just not good. It just showed how good it's how bad it is. Just because if the dude played an instrument, if he was a craft that was respected, I feel like he wouldn't have to tear his ACL to be a millionaire. He would have to be able to do something else. But tell me your thoughts.
Listen, my issue is that they don't want to have an avenue for players to get paid. If you don't want to pay them directly from the school, then tell me why they aren't able to benefit off their likeness. So it's really simple. We found a way to put a man on the moon. I think we can find a way to divvy up money.
There you go.
But if you don't want to, then you won't do it. There's a lot of smart people around here. I'm not talking about just Norman. There's a lot of smart people dealing with college athletics. Mm-hmm. They've built this into a multi-conglomerate that pumps out billions of dollars. You don't believe that the student athlete should be able to benefit financially off their likeness? Now, some people, but then this is what I hear the answer to, or a retort. Oh, well, take away their scholarships. That's not an option. That's a threat. That's not a real option. You're doing that to say, shut up, or we may do this to you, or to somebody who may agree with what you're talking about. They can't do it to me. I don't play anymore. You don't play anymore. I don't go to school anymore. But to me, that's just a threat. Shut up.
I don't like it, PJ, just because, so many people, and we've seen it time and time again, whether it be Adrian Peterson to Samaje Perine to a Joe Mixon, there's so much money out there that's left out on the table. And I would have people think this, and I told you this off the air, but I'm going to say it again, is if people would put their kids in that position, if your kid goes to play an instrument at Juilliard for free, And the next thing you know, 2 weeks later, they packed up and they said, hey, they told me my scholarship's gone. That was something that hurt your kid, that hurt their future. And those are things that we saw. We saw career-ending injuries. The season, not going to play again. Guys cut. Let's just say it. I know that it
used to be 1 year renewables,
and now what I tell people all the time, man, is now that they're lifetime guaranteed, is you can be put on medical scholarship. Hey, you're not healthy. Oh, we saw you limping the other day, so you're out of here. Right. You can do these things. This is a big business, and that's what you're saying is. And my deal, PJ, the other deal is I don't care who the check comes from. We got the $40 checks every Friday. I know you remember those, but now they're getting. I did my best
math with the $40. I did my best math
right.
with that one.
Oh my gosh, man! $40 a week. We did that, but my thing was we had Adrian Peterson and Jason White. There were so many people that offered me, hey, just you name the price as long as I can get a signed football. And that's my thing. It doesn't have to come from the school. There's a lot of other sources out there, advertising, marketing. You dealt with a car dealership. There's a lot of avenues out there for them.
Yeah, so, there definitely is. And again, this isn't an OU situation. This isn't a woe is me situation. There is enough money out there. If you're not going to pay them, because it's not about paying me or you. If you're not going to pay them now, if you're not going to let them benefit off their likeness, is there a way you can find out to put the money somewhere where they can get it once they graduate from college or once they leave college? So that, you know what I'm saying? So let's say, okay, well, what happens with the taxes? Are they going to tax it? Okay, tax it. These are just scare tactics. Oh, well, we'd have to tax it.
Right.
Don't you tax all money that's given out? We know that, right? So if there's 50,000 put up, there's going to be taxes on it, right? That's some of the things you learn when you go through life, become an adult, go through school, take economic classes, whatever it is. It's just really simple. I remember, and this is nothing against Gino Auriemma. I remember when he went to the Final Four, he got a $300,000 raise. A $300,000 bonus. So you're saying it's okay to put in a contract that a coach who's already getting millions can therefore, based off of the combination of his talent and leadership mixed with players who have to win the games for him, he gets $300,000 more if those players get him to the Final Four. So again, it's not that the money isn't there. There's not a will to pay these guys because they don't have representation. They're there for 2, 3, maybe 4 years. There's no significant body that can speak to or speak for them that's going to be there long enough. Because hey, you may say something, I may say something. When our 4 or 5 years is up, we're either going to go into the league, CFL, or life, real jobs, as people like to say.
No doubt.
Okay, so then it just turns back over. And when people say maybe we take the scholarship away and maybe we'll do this or do that, they're just trying to scare people away from actually dealing with the topic.
No doubt.
And when I say this is not to diminish or not to say I'm not appreciative of a scholarship. There's a lot of people that wouldn't be in college without a scholarship. I value that. I'm thankful for you giving me a scholarship. Most people are thankful for getting a scholarship no matter how talented you are. But because you're thankful for this scholarship does not mean that we shouldn't at a minimum be able to, or they at this point, shouldn't be able to benefit off their likeness because you're benefiting off their likeness.
No doubt.
I don't think that's too much to ask.
Yeah.
And it's not complaining. It's just a portion of sports that we need to get right.
You mentioned it too, though, PJ. I mean, you had offers from quite a few big schools. I had offers from there, and that's money that we just basically turned down. And so I think there should definitely be more for those guys. And my deal, PJ, we could do a whole show just on that. Right. You are a great topic on that. But I also think, man, you and I ain't just saying this because you're here, man. You brilliant, dude, because you know a lot of different things. Appreciate it, man. Whether it be, music, boxing, NBA.
Crawford and Spence need to fight, man.
Well, we're going to talk boxing. I'm more of a UFC guy, so I'm out of my league when you talk about boxing, but give me if you just educating me, who's the top 5 boxers of all time?
Wow, this is opinion-based now. It's just opinion-based. Ali, I mean, I think he's the greatest of all time. And I think his resume of who he beat makes him the best boxer to me. Separate from that, what he chose to stand up for in a time where people were really killing people. So when I say he put his life on the line for what he believed in, I'm talking more about the war. And he knew what was going to happen if he went over there. He was smart enough not to go. I'll just leave it at that. But what he did for so many people, you know, and it's almost like people caught up to it later. It's almost like people embraced him more once he was silenced, the Parkinson, and then it became fashionable to be around him, take pictures with him, because he wasn't saying some of the things he was saying in the 60s. And not to say I agree with everything Ali said, because I didn't. But I think his heart, when he was talking about social issues and where we needed to go, I think was in the right place. I don't have to agree with everything anybody says to value something that they said or the direction they're trying to go. So I think Ali was the best. Sugar Ray Robinson, they're the top two to me. Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson. I would say Henry Armstrong. He's a guy older than both of them, I believe. He was great. The last two, wow. The last two is between three, which is Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is a flawed person, but he's a brilliant boxer.
I love it.
He's a flawed person, but I really don't have any use for him as a person, per se. But Floyd got to be in the five, man. Roy Jones is one of the most talented. Sweepy Whitaker is one of the most underrated. But if I had to pick on your ability, how long did you do it, and what did you accomplish? That's how I judge players. So I'm going to judge boxers the same way. Skill set, resume, longevity. Therefore, Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, Mayweather.
That's good.
Sugar Ray Leonard. That's 4.
Yep.
So number 5, wow. Number 5 would be Roy. Roy was a bad boy. I know Roy.
Like I said, man, people can learn a lot just listen from you. I want to hear about some music. You always comment a lot on different genres. You're very
want rock or you want R&B?
Anything. If it's your top 5, and again, it's opinionated, so it's your top 5 favorite artists. Yours.
Okay, well, I'll just make it simple with rock. Led Zeppelin is the greatest rock group of all time. They're better than the Beatles. As far as R&B, Earth, Wind & Fire is number 1. They're my favorite group. They made me fall in love with words. They made me fall in love with instruments. My dad was an Earth, Wind & Fire fan. He used to buy records, bring them home, sit me and my brother down, turn the lights off, and we listen to the new records with the lights off. I'd ask why. He said because when you turn the lights off, you don't depend as much on your eyes. You sonically, you hear it better when the lights are low. So if you ever ride at night, music sounds a little better when you're riding. Because when your eyes is open, you're observant of what's going on. When you don't see as much, your other instincts take over. So Earth, Wind & Fire is number 1. Number 2 is Isley Brothers. Number 3 is the Temptations. Though I think they're the most important, I don't think that they're better than the first two. Then you got the OJs and you got Mays. That's my top 5 groups.
Awesome. A lot of people that I heard my dad talk about, but a little bit before my time on a few. But going to basketball, NBA starting 5, any era, who is it?
Starting 5?
For you.
Okay, I'm not going to go by position specific.
Okay.
My guards are Kobe and Jordan. The reason for Magic is the best point guard of all time, and he was my favorite player when I was a kid. Magic Johnson, I got to break this real quick. There's 2 things that taught me sports, taught me a lot about life in 2 incidents. Number 1, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan because of Tony Dorsett. I'm also a Dallas Cowboy fan because my dad was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan of Franco Harris. My dad was my hero, so I took the other team to play off of him. So Dorsett was my favorite player. He was a Dr. J fan. I love Doc. I took Magic to play off of him. Well, when Tony Dorsett, when Dallas moved him to Denver, I hated Dallas because you moved my favorite player. But what it did was it taught me that football was a business. I had to learn that. Next was Magic Johnson. And this is going to sound corny, but it was Thursday, November 7th, 1991. I come home, my mom tell me Magic got the HIV virus. I cried because I thought he was going to die. It taught me that greatness doesn't protect you from real life.
Real. I think that showed with Nipsey Hussle. Rest in peace, man. I mean, it just, tragic stuff. You mentioned your dad. I did the same thing. My dad was a Green Bay Packer fan. I went to Tampa Bay, so I lived bad through that. And then I want to get your thoughts on we talk about this a lot. Not many people do. You mentioned race earlier with Coach Switzer. You're very, very informative on that. Again, I would hope people listen to you on that. But 5 most inspirational African Americans in sports.
In sports?
In sports.
Wow. Inspirational. That's a big topic now. That's a big topic.
Who are your inspirations? So it could be basically your 5 favorite African Americans in sports. It may be
my
something
5.
that
You
you
mean my 5
side.
favorite athletes?
Right.
Okay, well, 5 favorite athletes in inspirational would be a little different. My 5 favorite athletes are Magic, Kobe. My favorite ones, not the best, but just my favorites. Magic, Kobe, Jordan, Dr. J, and Iverson. They're my 5 favorite. Well, no, you said overall athletes. I got to change it a little bit. So Magic, Kobe, Deion Sanders, Tony Dorsett, and Jordan. Yeah, my 5.
My dad grew up when he told me Magic was the only person he saw that could guard 1 through 5. So I definitely was a huge Magic fan.
Yeah, he played Game 6 against, when Kareem was out.
Yeah, we got to do. I was a little bit younger, but man, this has been amazing, PJ. I got to thank you again. We got 4 Twitter questions, man, and then anything you want to add. Okay. I had a few people hit me up about this, but at Lisa Blund said probably said it best. She said, "So let's talk about the '94 Syracuse game, one of her favorite games of the '90s. What was your first thought when the ball got punched out just before you crossed the goal line?"
Okay, I was excited about it because when I was a kid, like I grew up as a North Carolina fan basketball-wise, but I always liked Syracuse and Georgetown too. And the Carrier Dome looked bigger than life on television, so it was my first time getting to play in an arena that I kind of had, watched all the time. Pearl Washington and Sherman Douglas, and he's the reason I wore 20 in high school basketball because of Sherman Douglas, because I wasn't really a shooter. I was really a distributor, pass the ball, make the basket, defend, those type of things. Played against Iverson in high school, as I said before. Best athlete I ever played against in any sport. But it was the closest I was ever going to get to being home. Now, New York isn't that close to Virginia, but I'm on the East Coast, and it's going to be on television, so I'm hyped. Well, we get there, and we start off great. I scored a touchdown in the first half. Ran away from the guy. I think it's 21-0, something like that. And like we got them. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't like it's over. It was like we got them. Right. You put that hammer down on them. Well, in the second, right before halftime, I'm running the ball and I got tackled and I fell on my stomach. Well, as I fell on my stomach, one of the Syracuse guys, he fell on my lower back and his face mask, the cage, fell on my back, and I was having spasms in the locker room. And it kept getting tight. So they put the heat on it. They were doing stuff with it. It wasn't really, it wasn't getting any better. But how I grew up is if you can walk, you can play. So, I was busting them up in the first half. I had 130 some yards or something like that. And I'm like, I took him before I got him again. So I get out and I'm running and I catch it. And I turn up, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I got another one. We got them. And all of a sudden, I think it's 15, something like that, my back does like that, and them spasms just hit. And if you watch it, it slows down my stride. And I'm just like, what's going on? And the guy just, tipped it out of my hand because I start slowing down. Ball went through, and then it changed the momentum. Yeah. Like I always say, momentum is not faithful.
Right.
And it changed the momentum, and I'm just like, I felt embarrassed because that's never happened to me before. Nobody walks me down like that. But I mean, I know the reason, but I didn't really say anything about it because I don't like making excuses. There was a reason why I slowed down. There was a reason why he caught me. There's a reason why he tipped it. But it doesn't matter what the reason is. I didn't do my job. My job was to make plays, make scores, and don't make excuses. So I didn't make excuses. Most people didn't even know what happened because I didn't want it to come across as an excuse because I don't like excuses. But I just say this. I love Scott Blanton.
Yeah.
Because he kicked that field goal. Yeah. I love Scott Blanton. I loved him before. He's a good dude, but I love Scott Blanton. He saved me.
That's awesome, man. Wendy Avili wants to know, and I got to thank her. She actually handcrafted that Boomer Sooner and Fullback.
She did a great job. What's her name?
Wendy Avili. I'll tag her for you.
Great job, Wendy.
She said, what are the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome to get you where you are as an athlete?
I would say a lot. I had great parents. So anything I did wrong is when I got away from God's teaching and what my parents were doing. But we tend to be hard-headed, especially me younger. So, you know what? Sometimes we don't dream enough. We don't dream big enough. And sometimes it's like, I'm not good enough to do that. I'm good. That's like when I got the scholarship I was telling you about Proctor and Selman. Like, I knew I was good. That's not a cocky thing. I knew I was good. But where I'm from, everybody was good. So I didn't think it was special. I just thought, everybody can do this. And sometimes people are scared to fail, so they refuse to try. And I just want people to dream more, have a dream, have a goal, but don't just dream. Actually implement it. Do something. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. You may need to learn more, work harder, or go a different route. There's many different roads to success. There's many different ways to be successful. But don't worry about what people think about you, because the real ones are going to have your back when you win or you lose. The fake ones are only going to be around when everything's lit.
Great knowledge, and I mean, I brought up T. Jones earlier, so getting to look up to him and hear from him about VA. So I salute you. I have a brother-in-law that's from D.C., so I got to hear about D.C. all growing up. We're gonna go. I heard
Chocolate City.
Chocolate City.
It's the truth.
Yeah, I have a nephew.
I just leave it at that.
No, I know it. I have a nephew that went to Johns Hopkins, so he just graduated not too long ago. So I haven't been, but I need to go. But he's told me all about the math of basketball. Just what
They had 4 guys that went to the NBA off that
Oak Hill, Mello, and all them. I grew up around Mello time. Yeah. We're gonna go to a different question.
I got time. Go ahead.
At OU Edwards wants to know, and I had a few big 8 questions, but he wants to know which of the 3 Big 8 schools that left was the best to visit: Colorado, Nebraska, or Mizzou.
That's an interesting question because I didn't go to any of them.
Really?
What happened was my dad had cancer. It was getting worse, so I didn't take that many visitors.
Did y'all play him up there?
We played Nebraska.
How was those?
It was historic. Like, Nebraska was a big name, so you used to see them on television all the time. So when USC came my freshman, that was huge for me to play USC because that's a big name. Nebraska's a big name.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, it was a big name. And Missouri had the worst field. Missouri had the worst field by far. And I got hurt in Missouri my senior year. You know, I was returning a punt, and I put my leg down. I planted, and I was going to turn, and I got dove at my leg sideways, and it tore my MCL. So I played the last 2 games with my MCL torn. I played against Missouri. I got torn in Missouri, played against Kansas State, scored against Kansas State, and then we played against Nebraska in '95. That was my last college game. Last game ever, actually. And that 95 team is the best team I ever played against. I mean, they were a monster. It's not the best team I ever saw, but it's the best team I ever played against. They were legit.
Yeah, man. So we actually went to all 3. We played at Colorado, and I will say that the altitude, and I would say Colorado was probably the best to visit, just as far as like what it looked like. The altitude was different. It got to me in the second half. We did play at Missouri.
The altitude is different.
It is different. We played at Missouri. That was the Bob Stoops where he called the fake field goal to Chris Chester.
Yeah.
And Chester catches it with his elbows. Yeah. Bless my dude's heart. Great play call. Nebraska, when we went there, PJ, you know, they were kind of down. The Zach Taylor was their quarterback, now head coach of Cincinnati Bengals. Real proud of him. Norman guy.
Yeah, he's doing good.
Real proud of him. So, but we went to all 3, and I thought Nebraska, even though they were down, I thought the one thing that stuck out to me was it was full. It was
going to be full.
It was going to be full.
It's going to be full.
It didn't matter what their record was. I think this is probably the best question. At K.A. Caliendo, he says, man, I think it's time to honor some teams and players from the 90s. He said, I would love to see more of those players featured during games, on programs, etc. What has OU done to make sure that era is included, and what could we do better as a university?
The same thing that makes you laugh makes you cry. And what that means in many instances is OU is about excellence. It's about championships, conference and national. It's about winning on a high, consistent level. I hope this comes across the way I mean it. In many cases, people will ask, if they don't know who you are, if they find out that you played at OU, they'll ask you when. It's a valid question. They'll ask you your name, and they'll ask you when. If you say you played at certain years that won, you're going to be valued as a better player.
That's
whether
real.
they saw you play
That's
or
real.
not.
Oh, I played in 2000. No
Right.
big deal.
So then you were
All-American.
you were the guy, right?
Yeah.
If you played in an era that didn't win as much, oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? It's courteous, but you know that going in. Winning determines the narrative. And that's just what it is. I got a guy who I came in with, still one of my best friends, Cedric Jones.
Great player. Great guy.
Cedric Jones, to me, is the most underrated defensive player in OU history. Am I biased? Yes. But I try to back up my opinions with as much facts as possible. Ced has a sack record for a game at OU, a season, and a career. He had the all-time sack record for the entire conference. I haven't checked it in a while. His name never comes up. Why? Because the team didn't win as much. So, winning changes the narrative. If you were in a winning time period and a winning culture, you're going to be viewed differently. We know that.
No doubt.
I know how good I was, right? But we didn't win enough. And it wasn't necessarily in the throwing era. So, I don't sit around and complain about it. And this is what it is. I'm proud to just be a part of the lineage and the history. Let the chips fall where they may. If you saw me, you know what's up. If you didn't, okay, that's fine. I have my time. I'm having fun. I'm not worried about right now me getting credit or some other people getting credit for back then. I'm worried about fixing what we got going on now so we can keep playing these championships and trying to win some of these championships because the story keeps moving.
Yeah.
You know, and if you really love OU, you're not just stuck in your time. You're proud of it, and there's a camaraderie there, but you want that dominance to continue. And that's all I want.
I think the school's done an okay job. I think something you
They
were right on the part.
They haven't reached out. Let's be honest. They haven't really reached out to the 90s.
That's why I said okay.
They haven't reached. Let's be honest. They have not reached out to the guys for the 90s. You don't see guys you don't see Joe Bowden's pitch up there. He was All-American. You don't see Cedric Jones pitch up there. He was an All-American. You don't see Tyrell Peters. He went to the NFL. Ben Calvin went to the NFL. Aubrey Beavers went to. There's a bunch of guys that was. Bunch of guys that went to the Hall of Fame, not Hall of Fame, but to the NFL. Mm-hmm. Joey Mickey went to the NFL. James Allen, Gerald Moore, there's a bunch of guys that went to the NFL. Travion Smith. There's a bunch of guys that went to the NFL from the 90s. But because you didn't play in an era that produced championships or championship opportunities, you're not going to be viewed the same. And there are I would just say this. If you looked at that defense last year that went to the Final Four, and you looked at the defenses I played on, I'm not sure two guys could start on that team.
No, I get it. And when I say...
And that's not about defending my era. That's about Anthony Fogel went to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrell Peters went to the NFL. Reggie Barnes went to the NFL. Aubrey Beavers went to the NFL. Right? DJ Johnson played in 2 Super Bowls. Darius Johnson played in 2 Super Bowls for the Broncos, got an interception. Yeah, guys that went to the Super Bowl. Guys that played in conference championship games in the NFL. Guys that went to the NFL and played. Multiple from the defense. But because you played in the 90s, they just act like you weren't that good. But as I say, I know the game. The game is the same here as it is anywhere else. If you won, you were good. If you didn't, appreciate you playing.
No, you're absolutely right. And
I'm not bitter about it. It just is what it is.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, though. I mean, you'd be amazed. People out there would be amazed how many times people. And when I said that OU is just okay, I'm saying that for my area. They only do okay. There's ways that I think we could do better.
And Stoops, that's who people talk about. That era. I get why, but you're not really having a thorough conversation about Oklahoma football if you can't see through the minutia and recognize Ced Jones' greatness.
No doubt.
Recognize Joe Bowden's greatness. And so on and so forth. If you can't do that, then are you really watching what happened, or are you just saying who made us feel good so we can talk about how many conference championships we won, which is valuable and needed, but there's more to those things. You got to talk about the probation that we had nothing to do with, that we had to deal with.
No doubt.
We had to talk about the coaching. When I played, there was an uproar upstairs at OU, right? So there were so many different things. But in the end, I don't make excuses. You have to win. If you don't, you know the consequences.
No doubt. And again, PJ, this has been great. And I got to get a few more things from you. But yeah, so but what I was going to say is, there's so many people that come up to me and say, JD, man, they grew up watching us in that era. I mentioned how it was hard to watch you guys on TV, and I feel bad for even saying that. But there were so many people that came up and said that, and you're so right about like the NFL talent and things like that. We've got to pick it up better. I want to get your thoughts on the SEC with that. Just what do you think it'll take for us to get elite talent like Clemson and Alabama's doing?
Well, first of all, you know how I am on this SEC question. I want people to stop being so emotional about the SEC. They have won, 14 of the last 20 national championships? Who do you think ESPN is going to talk about?
No doubt.
Right? I remember in 03. They were saying that 03 was possibly the greatest college football team of all time. That was the Oklahoma Sooners they were talking about. After losing to Kansas State. Winning changes the narrative, and it always will. Why are they talking about the SEC so much? Because they won 14 of 20 national championships. I saw people, when Texas beat Georgia, was happy. Mm-hmm. What are you happy about?
They're back.
What do you okay? So you're looking at Georgia and you're looking at Texas, and you're happy that Texas won the game, but you say Texas is your rival. There is a thing called envy, and I think some people are a little envious of the coverage that the SEC gets. Well, why they got that coverage? Remember, when Bear Bryant retired in '82. The SEC wasn't looked at like that. They weren't looked like that in the 80s. They weren't looked like that in the 90s. Remember, at the end, the Big 12 was the best conference in America.
Yeah.
I've never been a conference guy. I'm an OU guy. Right. I don't care what conference it's in. But I just don't like the complaining about the coverage, because you would want that coverage if you was doing the same thing.
Very true.
What did Clemson do?
They changed. They made their own narrative.
They beat them. You want the conversation to change. You got to go beat the big dog
twice.
Got to go beat them.
Beat them twice.
Yes, and the interesting thing also is, and I'm not an SEC guy by any means. I couldn't care less about them. What they've done is smart. They changed the narrative of how the South was viewed to some degree. And they changed their narrative how the conference is viewed. They've made it so that if you win, the SEC wins, and they're unstoppable. And if you lose, it's not really your fault because you're in the SEC.
That's right.
It's brilliant marketing.
You're right.
It's brilliant marketing, but it only works if you win, right? So when people are talking about, the Big 12, when's the last time the Big 12 won a national championship?
My next question I was going to ask you, when do you think OU will win another natty? If you had to put a year on it.
You got to let me know what the defense looks like. Because offensively, we've been good enough for 4 years. These 1 or 2 of these last 2 years better start, maybe. It was close. But the defense, again, I'm not saying that this has to be 74-75. One of the most talented defense in college history, let alone OU. I'm not saying this has to be 84-87 defense. I'm not saying this got to be the defense from 2000 to 2004. I'm not saying it has to be top notch. Like, you know what happens. And if somebody scores 20 points, you're like, what happened? But you have to be able to have a defense that 6 or 7 games in, the opponent didn't score every time in the red zone, whether it's a touchdown or a field goal. So when I'm highlighting the defense, it's because that's the issue right now. No defense, no rings. If we could just get the defense in the 40s to go with that offense that we had, I think we'd have got at least one of those championships.
So much of it, PJ, just like
it's recruiting and evaluation.
That and NFL, what ultimately becomes NFL talent.
Right. So you got to Grinch is coming in. I wanted to be successful. It has nothing to do with him. It has to do, he's coming into our family. So if you coming in, I welcome you. But we still going to hold you accountable for what you do. You have to get back to evaluating talent. I don't care what the stars say. Stars are manipulated anyway. Evaluate talent. What do you see in that kid? Can you develop him? Can you stack talent? Are you going to hold him accountable? You're going to teach him the fundamentals. Do you know what the biggest scare I had in OU?
What's that?
Is the bench. The bench.
Yeah.
I don't like the bench.
And we've had too many that have visited.
I don't like the bench. Like if somebody comes in after you, guys play better because that bench scares them. You put yourself in a position where you got a little name on campus, you got some respect from the coaches, and then there's another guy coming in. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I may not go out tonight. I may get up and run a little bit more. I may hit that gym a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? I may do extra because now I got a guy come behind me. I know he's good. I may not admit it to people. I know he's good. You have to stack your talent because competition makes everybody better. So when we get back to recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. We have to get back to hitting different areas. We've talked about this before. I don't care if you're from Oklahoma or not.
Right.
If you come to OU, you are family. Mm-hmm. You are a Sooner. Is Coach Switzer from Oklahoma?
I don't think he is.
Is Lincoln from Oklahoma?
No, he's not.
Was Bob from Oklahoma?
No, sir.
Was Roy from Oklahoma?
Nope.
Listen, there's nothing wrong for being from Oklahoma. Guess what? We've won championships from people with other places. Billy Sims grew up in St. Louis, came out of Texas. Joe Washington. I don't care where they were born. I care that they're here. What do they do when they're here?
You bring up a great point about depth, PJ, and I think that that's the key, and I think it's the missing ingredient. I think that people are stacking up in areas where we're not able to, in positions where we're not able to. I think that what Clemson is able to do with replacing their front seven and having guys on all three levels is what's winning it for them. I think they put in a stud quarterback, kind of what you talked about. They have the offense to go with the defense. It's that similar deal, but I think the other deal goes to the elite defensive line talent. Where games are truly won. Mm-hmm. How do we get how are our backups? When you brought up a great point, when guys, I felt that fear on offense. Back when I was there, I felt that fear on defense. We were bringing in 5-star, 4-star guys. They were wanting to come here. They were wanting to back up Tommy. They would want to back up other guys.
Y'all was smacking people up.
BV signed 2 5-star linebackers one year. Yeah. Lance Mitchell and Pasha Jackson. The depth of guys that they were able to pull in that played behind guys. And I'm going to be honest with you, PJ, that's what worries me about the defense going forward this year. We've just lost Caleb Kelly and who's the other one for just a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think they'll recover, but from what I've seen, we can't lose many guys.
No, you can't. And listen, if you don't have the abundance of talent, at a minimum, you have to have fundamentals and people on the same page. So are you recruiting to win the national championship? Or are you recruiting to beat OSU? What I'm saying is don't recruit just for the conference. If you're good enough to win the national championship, you'll be good enough to win the conference. If you just focus on the conference, you may not be good enough to win the national championship. Focus yourself on being the best, and everything else will fall in line.
You're absolutely right, and Clemson's the prime example. And I think
they
a lot
took
of
it to Bama, and that's all this. I mean to cut you off.
No, you good.
But all this crying about the coverage of Alabama, you know what Clemson did?
They beat them. They changed the narrative.
They got better and beat them. Now people are looking at Clemson like, okay, you're the new king. Energy is transferred. I'm going to give you an example. Florida State and Nebraska were the big dogs of the 90s.
Sure were. I loved Florida State growing up.
What happened? Florida State won the 3 national championships. What happened the third time they got to the national championship?
Lost to Mike, or they beat Vic.
That was the second championship.
They lost to Florida State.
Who they lose to last?
OU.
Right. So what happened? You guys took the energy away. Florida State and Nebraska had the energy, but you took both of it away. You beat Nebraska in the regular season. You took Nebraska's energy. Then you beat Florida State in the national championship game. The 2 big dogs of the 90s, y'all beat them in 1 year.
They sure
so
did.
OU had the juice and was viewed as the team for the next 4 or 5 years. Unfortunately, USC beat us. Then USC took the juice, right? So you got to beat the man to beat a man. Clemson didn't make excuses. And what we do is we don't make excuses. We got to get better. We can get back. We're not far off. It may seem like we are. We're not far off. We just have to button it up, stack our talent, get the right guys here, get bigger guys here, get faster guys here, get guys that can have fundamentals, athleticism, and be competitive. We're not far off, but we're not as close as some people think.
Last question. Last one, I promise. I know I
got
said the
time,
Twitter questions.
man.
I know.
I got time.
Prediction for OU next year.
Win the conference. Until I see something different from the defense. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a nice addition. I think he's going to bring leadership. I think that he's going to run a little bit. I don't have a problem with a running quarterback. Just be able to either throw the ball away or get down and get out of bounds. Be smart with how you run. You need to use that part of his game. The O-line is not going to be as complete as it was this year. Obviously, you got the receiver gone. It was dynamic. There's still talent there. So I still think Oklahoma's still good enough. I still think we're good enough to win the conference. But as far as past that, unless I see something different from that defense, I'm not confident about anything other than winning the conference.
That's a tough one, man. And you bring it up. It's necessary for us to do it, but we've got to set higher goals. We've got to get the best of the talent in America. And right now, there's just 2 or 3 schools that are getting better talent. PJ, we got to do this again, man. We could do this all day, but we'll just have to do it again. And
anytime. I love this. Let me just say this, man. I got so much love for University of Oklahoma. So much love for the people in Oklahoma. They're great people. If you work, one thing about Oklahoma fans that's unanimous. If you work hard, they'll give you a due and they'll support you. Mm-hmm. But what I want to do right now is shout out my man J.D. Runnels. You not only love OU, you tell the truth, but you give back to so many people without asking anything. You don't ask anything for anybody other than, if I give you an opportunity, give me your best. That's all you ask for, is give me your best. You're giving a platform to guys to say what they feel, mention things that they've been through. You are a guy that is needed in this community. I'm glad that somebody big hasn't taken you away to something big somewhere else. I would be happy for you. But I think that the energy, the positive energy that you bring, you come from a loving spirit, and you did it on the field, so your words are going to mean more. Sometimes you can say the right things, but the right person isn't saying it. Well, you've been on the field in the big moments. You were in those conference championship games. You were there in the great early era of Bob Stoops, but you're still here now giving back. And I think that is something that needs to be saluted. So I salute you, brother.
Well, thank you, man. And it means a lot. And you're in our Facebook group now with all the OU players, and just being able to tie all those things together, man. I'm gonna keep doing it. You guys inspired me. You showed me what OU was. I told you about how many people influenced me, man. So I owe you a big thanks too, man. This has been PJ Mills. It's been another great episode. Thank you to my man Brad Reed.
OU versus everybody.
OU versus La Familia. It's been another great episode of Fullback U.